All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this morning for our last installment of the Cape Perpetua Speaker Series this season. We're going to be hearing from Laura Tesler, and she's going to share with us about diving the Pacific Northwest and the hidden beauty. And I also wanted to highlight that we have our last webinar coming up for our Young Scientist webinar series as well. On Tuesday, April 13th at 5:30 p.m. And we will be learning about adaptive capacity and an analysis of community perceptions, policy responses to ocean acidification and marine stressors on the West Coast. A little bit about the Cape Perpetua Collaborative. My name is Tara Du Bois, and I'm the communications coordinator for the collaborative. And the collaborative's vision is to foster conservation and collaboration within local communities for scientific exchange, management, awareness, and stewardship from land and sea around the Cape Perpetua Marine Reserve. And the three guiding principles that guides our work are community engagement, leveraging resources, and engaging in partnerships. And as you can see along the bottom here, we have a variety of founding partners, including federal agencies, state agencies, local nonprofits, as well as the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians. Our focus is around the Cape Perpetua Marine Reserve, the largest of 5 marine reserves in Oregon. And in combination with the North Marine Protected Areas to the north and south, there are some form of protected waters that stretch between Yachats and Florence. And today's fun fact, as you're going to be seeing in this presentation, there's more beneath the surface. And so I wanted to also highlight that ODFW, who monitors the marine reserves, has captured some really great short videos of many different animals that are in the ocean and live along the shore. And you can take a look at those videos on our website at the capeperpetuacollaborative.org, and then just click on the About tab, or you can type in the full URL for the Marine Reserve. We do host a variety of community science within the Marine Reserve area. Some of them are seasonal, some of them are monthly. And as I highlighted here, we have our Young Scientist webinar series the second Tuesday of every month. And you can find out all of these events and more information about upcoming presentations as we host a variety of different things throughout the year at our website, capeperpetuacollaborative.org, and just click on the events tab and that'll take you to our calendar. And I always like to encourage you to follow us on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And with that, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Laura Tesler. She's a diver and underwater photographer who lives in Salem, Oregon, which is sadly landlocked and about 2 hours from the Pacific Ocean. She grew up in Michigan, which is even further away from the sea. I'm also a Midwestern, so from that area. However, she did not learn how to dive until she was 40 years old, but grew up watching the undersea world of Jacques Cousteau and the old Sea Hunt episodes with her mom, and always thought it would be fantastic to learn how to dive. On her open water certification in 2015, she remembers sitting at 50 feet underwater and watching Rockfish and thinking she was stupid for not learning how to dive earlier. But she eventually gained her dive master certification in December 2014 and has never turned back. And with that, Laura, you can bring up your PowerPoint now. I'd like to turn it over to Laura. As she's pulling up her PowerPoint, I just want to share that we will do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And so if you have any questions throughout, please feel free to add them to the chat or under the Q&A box, and we will answer those once she's done. And with that, Laura, it's all yours.
Okay. Okay. Ah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And can hear you.
Hello.
Good to go.
Okay. And we are off to the races. Good morning, everyone. So as Tara said, I'm Laura Tesler. I'm going to go ahead and start my clock because I have a lot of pictures and I agonized over what pictures to show you today because we are going to move down the coast And we're going to start up in British Columbia and we're going to move right down the coast. And so I have been diving a long time, and I have 15,000 pictures on my drive, which I am not going to show you 15,000 pictures, which you should be happy about. But first of all, a big shout out to Cape Perpetua Collaborative and Terra and to the other marine reserves, because this is the kind of great work that they do, and this is the way that we educate people about the ocean and the ocean environment. So let's get right into it. I want to start out with this picture right here, and this is an egg yolk jelly. And a lot of times, and in this talk today, I'm going to use common names. I'm not going to use scientific names. And usually when you do talk to people about what you see, you do use scientific names. But today we're just going to use common names. And these egg yolk jellies, usually when you see them, they're pretty small. They're less than a foot across on the bell. And when you talk about the bell, this is the bell right here is the body of the jellyfish. And this particular egg yolk was out, it was a pelagic egg yolk, which means this guy was out at the sea for a while, and he kind of floated too close to these anemones. And unfortunately, this guy's going to meet a sad end because these plumose anemones are drawing him in so they can eat him, unfortunately, piece by piece over time. But I happen to be diving up in British Columbia at a site called Seven Tree. And if there's a person called John DeBoek on this call today, this is a site that John likes to put us on quite a bit up there. And these are the types of things that you'll see up there in British Columbia. So onwards. So my first dive was in 2005. Tara added 10 years to that date. Thank you. I feel 10 years younger already. I have over 700 dives now. So I'm 80% cold water, which is kind of a freak of nature in the diving community. But, you know, you're seeing more cold water divers these days, so that number is getting up. I am a PADI dive master, which is a step below being an instructor. I kind of chose to hard stop there. And these are all the places that I have dove so far to date. And I'm going back to Egypt in June, so I'm going to go back to the Red Sea in June, and I'm pretty excited about that. And this is my beast and my companion and the equipment that I use to take all these pictures that I'm going to show you today. You can see a little bit of some of the lenses in the background, but there's a camera inside this housing. This is the housing that the camera fits inside, and you can kind of see it inside there. There's the back of it. It's Nauticam D500, which is a crop sensor version of the 850 D850, which is a full sensor camera, full-sized camera. This is a 1.6 version of a full-size camera. And there's a specific reason why I chose this camera is because I shoot a lot of macro. So this allows me to shoot very close focus pictures without doing a lot of cropping. You know, I have to shoot 2 CNC strobes because when you shoot underwater, you need extra lighting underwater because you lose color spectrum the deeper you go. I use a focus light because you need a light so that your camera can focus and, you know, you can trigger your shutter. I use different kind of lenses depending on what I'm shooting and where I'm going, because I like to shoot macro. Sometimes I shoot super macro, which is you're shooting things that are, you know, a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch or, you know, sometimes even smaller than a 1/4 inch. And I'll use what's called a diopter, which is kind of like a magnifying glass, which sits in front of your lens. And so I would be putting that in front of a 105 or a 60 millimeter lens. A 60 millimeter is basically a lens that you would use for, I don't know what I'm going to see type dive. That's everything up to the size of a softball. A 45 millimeter is my fish lens. That's lenses that I use when I want to shoot full-size pictures of rockfish or just fish in general. This is a wide angle fisheye lens, and it's called a fisheye lens because it shoots a 180 perspective lens, and it's also it gives you a bent. If you shoot it on land, it looks kind of odd because it looks like a total It bends things on a globe almost. Very unflattering if you take a picture of somebody on land because it makes them look sort of buggy like a fisheye lens. But underwater, you do not see this barrel curvature. So it's absolutely wonderful for shooting wide angle. I don't use this lens very much here. I do use it in British Columbia because you get better visibility in British Columbia. And I'll be talking about that in a little bit. So I just wanted to give you kind of a rundown of what this looks like. This whole rig, when it's all set up, weighs about 12 pounds. And so I have these little buoyancy devices on the top of it, and that kind of helps when I'm underwater to keep it neutrally buoyant. And I also pump it. This is a little valve you can see right here, and I use sort of like this little syringe thing to keep it pumped so I can put air inside of it. This is how we dress to dive here. This is what's called a dry suit. Underneath this dry suit, I wear another undergarment, was called an undergarment. I wear a specialty undergarment that's called a weasel. I know, funny name, but it's got kind of like an artificial down covering inside of it. It's actually something similar to what space people in space wear underneath their spacesuit. They're kind of expensive, but they last forever and they are very warm. I do not get cold when I wear my weasel, and I love it. And then underneath that, I usually just wear a pair of polypropylene underwear. In the summertime, I don't even wear polypropylene underwear because I get too hot. So this will keep me completely warm and dry down to, you know, I have ice stove in that kind of setup. So I'm completely warm and dry. The only time that you do get a little, you get a little face freeze sometimes when you ice dive, but once you kind of get over that, it's not too bad. I also wear dry gloves. So these are an interlocking system that your hands do not get wet. So pretty much warm and dry is the key. I do know some people that do dive wetsuit, but if you're diving repeated dives here, you're pretty chilly after a couple of dives in a wetsuit. So that's okay for California or other warm water climes, but coming up here, you're pretty much looking at diving in a dry suit. I'm going to give you some real basic science about why the diving is so completely awesome here. Okay, and you're missing out if you don't dive here. We have a phenomenon called upwelling here. Basically, the deep, cold, nutrient-rich water off our shores moves in to the warmer surface water, and it kind of turns over when it hits these kind of steeper shores that we have in the Pacific Northwest. And then we get this phenomenon called upwelling. So all this food moves in from the deep shore. See all these fish? These fish are like, yum, I'm going to go and move in here and I'm going to take advantage of this food. There should be like a little icon of a diver just going, wee, jumping in right here, or a boat like full of divers smiling, because this is exactly the kind of phenomenon you want. This is where you're going to see all the action, all the fish, all the feeding, because upwelling is good. You want upwelling. Even a little bit of plankton on the top is not a big deal because you can get underneath it and you can just see all the action. That's what you want. And when you get a lot of plankton, that's when all the whales come in. So, I've never seen a whale underwater. I'd really like to. I've seen a whale swam on top of this once when we were in Nia Bay, and I thought it was the boat, and I looked up and I thought, wow, the boat's kind of close to us. And then I figured out that there was a minke whale swimming over the top of us, and minke whales are like 35 feet long. So that was kind of cool. It took me a minute because I couldn't figure out why the boat was so close to us. And then I figured out it was a whale swimming over us. So, and the other thing that's a great phenomenon is we've got these currents. And if you look here and you see this California current, this is why California diving is so awesome, because they have this really nice current that goes right close to their coast. And you see that it's always going this way. They've got this nice little beautiful upwelling in this current that always brings them, all this wonderful food and upwelling from the ocean. And then up here, as you travel up to BC and you see this beautiful Vancouver Island right here, they have this Alaska current and then a little bit of this tail of this other California current. And it just constantly washes this area with food and current, and it's just a beautiful conjunction of current and food and all this phytoplankton coming up, and it's just a bonanza of fish and creatures to see. So here we are, British Columbia, land of awesome diving. That's all I can say. It just really is. And the reason why I love it up there so much is because the visibility is just really nice. You can get 100, 200-foot visibility on an amazing day up there, and you just get really, really nice conditions. It's they call it the Emerald Sea, and you get these beautiful color of green up there when you dive, and just crystal clear water usually. And when you go up there and dive at these various places, one time we were up here in Campbell River, and the people were, and Canadians, I love Canadians too, because they're always so polite. You know, Canadians are just, and they would come and, well, we have to apologize to you because the visibility is only 60 feet today. You know, and usually, you know, visibility in Washington, if you get 25, 30 feet, you know, it's like drop everything and go diving. And so, you know, 60 feet was really, yay, you know. So we, every year, unfortunately, we have not been able to get into Canada for over a year and a half now, which makes me want to weep, because this time of year, I would have been to Canada at least 3 times, because there are certain times of the year I really like to go to Canada for certain things. And the main reason in the springtime is to go to this place right here, Seychelles. And I'm going to show you some pictures from there, to a place called Skookumchuck, where there's a great place you can drift dive through this place called Skookumchuck Narrows, which just is an amazing place with walls just covered with all kinds of filter feeding anemones and starfish. And it's amazing, and cloud sponges too. And I'll show you that. And then in the fall, you make a pilgrimage up here to a place called Port Hardy, which basically the road ends there. You can't go any farther. And this is the big, big diving up here. These are big walls, 200 feet deep, deeper than that. Of course, you're not going to the bottom recreationally diving, but just covered with amazing things. And, you know, you can dive out of Port McNeil. I've dove out of Campbell River. This is another amazing tidally influenced place to dive. Beautiful diving here. Comex Valley, this place right here. This is another amazing place to dive. There's an island out here called Hornby Island, which we really like to dive. I have some pictures from there I'm going to talk about. This is another great place to dive out in Nanaimo, which I've dove out of, which also has some amazing wrecks. One of them is called the Saskatchewan, which is a purpose sunk wreck that you just descend upon, and it's just amazing to see this wreck just shimmering out, you know, as you come down on it. Victoria's got some amazing dives here, a place called Race Rocks that we wanted to dive out of this year, that of course our trip was canceled because we couldn't get into Canada. So the next available time I can get into Canada, I definitely want to get into Victoria and dive there. So this is basically what it looks like topside. And I have very few pictures topside because I'm shooting through the dome of my housing. And so, you know, I mean, this is the best picture I can offer you, through the dome of the housing, where you don't have water droplets stuck to the outside of it. But, you know, you get this real rocky shore interface, pretty steep drop off, but you're usually diving out of a boat. Up there in Port Hardy, I don't think I've ever shore dived out of there. You're going up there, people are taking you out on a boat, and you're jumping off a boat into the water and descending down on these walls. And I really like Port Hardy because the person that we go out with out of Hideaway, you know, he knows what we want to take pictures of, and he will drop you exactly where you want to be to take pictures of certain things. And it's just amazing up there. It's advanced diving because it's drift diving. It's very currenty. It can be deep. But it's just, and it's a live boat pickup. So they basically drop you and you just drift with the current underwater. But as you're drifting, I want to talk, you're looking at this. This is what you're looking at. And I feel bad for people that don't realize how beautiful it is underwater in British Columbia, because I was on the ferry and this lady was like, I don't understand why you would get in this cold, dark water. And I'm like, oh, you are missing out, because it is so beautiful underwater up there. I mean, this is Browning Pass, and Browning Pass is all about this. And this is just at the top. And you're just, I love going up there with people that have never been there before, because they literally are open mouthed when you drop in and start looking at these walls. And don't let people tell you that there is not coral in the Pacific Northwest, because guess what? We do have coral in the Pacific Northwest. And these are sea strawberries on the left, which is a type of coral that's a cold water coral. And this is an octo coral. This is a sea whip. And this is an octo coral, which is another type of coral that we have which is a cold water coral, which we have in the Pacific Northwest. So we do have coral in the Pacific Northwest. And we also have sponges in the Pacific Northwest. And here's an example of kind of oddly named the dead man's finger. These are like very large. These sponges can be, 6 feet across, 10 feet across. Fish hide in them. They're beautiful. They're very common on these big walls in Browning Pass. These yellow big sponges here, also common up there. Walls just covered with them. Big schools of fish. This is another very common denizen that you're going to see on these walls up here. This is a red Irish lord. You also see a lot of these fish in Oregon and Washington, but especially up there. These guys have a lot of chromatophores in their skin, which they can change color very quickly. They basically change color to whatever they sit on, because they have a lie in wait feeding strategy. They can just lunge out and grab things that come by. So whatever, they'll change color to whatever they sit on. They also have these amazing eyes that have chromatophores scattered all across their eyeballs. And they just look like flecks of gold. They're very beautiful to take pictures of. And I'm always getting teased up there because I take about 500 pictures of these fish, and, because I love them so much. These are widow rockfish, which you don't see down south very much, but you see tons and tons and tons of them up there in British Columbia. British Columbia did a good job of managing their fisheries and shutting their fisheries down in some areas, and establishing a lot of marine reserves in some cases. And you can really see a lot more fish up there in this area in Browning, especially. And you just see millions and millions of fish in some cases. This is another one of my favorite rockfish to see. You can see these in Oregon and Washington too, but you see a lot of them up there. And this is a China rockfish, and they are very, very beautiful. They can be shy. These guys like to just kind of come out and show themselves off once in a while. Super beautiful to see. Here's some more black rockfish. You will see schools, literally thousands of these rockfish, and they will just come, and it's just like being in a parade. I'll just kind of hang out and tuck into these walls, and these fish will just swim by you like they're just in a huge parade. This is the famous mola mola shot, and I'll just say, you don't see these in British Columbia. This is a fish that's native to much warmer water. So seeing this fish was quite a shock. I did not have a proper lens for this fish. I had a macro lens on, a 60 millimeter. My buddy was like, tugging at me like he was going to die. And I was taking a picture of a little tiny thing that was on a kelp stipe. And I turned around, and here's this mola mola, this 3-foot mola mola, just kind of swooping in and out. And, I just managed to squeeze off this shot just to prove that we did see a mola mola in British Columbia. And here he is. And they're so cool. I was so ecstatic to see a mola mola underwater. I mean, yay, kind of odd, but very beautiful underwater, actually. This is the world's largest nudibranch, an orange peel nudibranch. And I guess, some people eat them. Some cultures eat them. I wouldn't eat them, but they're very cool to see. This particular individual is about 1.5 feet long. Here's some more examples of nudibranchs. I really like to shoot nudibranchs. Another reason why I shot a crop sensor camera, because I like to do a lot of macro work with nudibranchs. This is a lemon peel nudibranch and his little friend, the San Diego nudibranch with him. Here's another little friend that you can see underwater at night. This is a red octopus. This is not a giant Pacific octopus. This is a red octopus. These guys are a lot smaller. You see them at night a lot. They'll come out. I'm wary of these guys. These guys like to bite. I don't touch things, I don't, and get in their space. They're sure cool to see. They come out and hunt and they move around pretty quickly. They also change color like their bigger cousins, the giant Pacific. But they're, quite the hunters. I mean, they'll move around pretty quick and get on fish and stuff. And this guy, as soon as I took his picture, it changed. He like turned completely white. And so it was fun kind of watching them move around. They're very smart too, super smart. This is one of the coolest things ever to see underwater, in my opinion, that I think. I mean, some people think they're creepy, but I really like them. This is a basket star. And you can see these in Washington and Oregon too, but usually in Washington and Oregon, they're really deep. You don't usually see them recreationally diving. In British Columbia, you do see them in the daytime at recreational limits. And at recreational limits, I'm talking like 130, which is as deep as you're supposed to go recreationally. These guys you can see a lot shallower, and they come up at night to feed. And so what they're doing is they're coming up, at nighttime, and they're going to unfurl these arms. And they're filter feeders, so they'll just completely unfurl these arms. And then they have these kind of delicate filaments that unfurl at that. And they are just so beautiful and cool. And I just love taking pictures of them. And in British Columbia, you just see a lot of them. So we're going to move a little bit farther south, and cloud sponges. You're going to see these. I mean, you can see them up here, but this is a special place to see them is in Seychelles. And these cloud sponges are really old. They're hundreds of years old. They're very delicate. They usually grow more than 100 feet deep. So this is usually not the longest visit down to see them. Very targeted. You're going down to shoot them. Lots of things live on cloud sponges. They're glass silicate sponges. There's other places that they grow, but this is Seychelles, a special place to go see these cloud sponges. They are super cool to see. Amazing, slow growing, cool sponges. This is another really special thing to see at another place called Hornby Island, which is kind of close to Seychelles as you're moving south. These are flag rockfish or tiger rockfish, usually very shy. You see them kind of peeping out from underneath a rock. You can also see these in San Juan Islands. You can also see these in Oregon, but they're very not common in Oregon. I just love these rockfish. And there's a place in Hornby where they'll just kind of come out and sit, which is amazing because they're usually, like I said, very shy. So seeing these guys this is a target dive. This is a dive that you go on just to shoot these guys in particular. And I just love, 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 love these rockfish. Very long-lived rockfish, by the way. They can live a long time. And just a word about rockfish, most rockfish do live a long time. So when you go and eat black rockfish, that rockfish could be 11 years old. Some rockfish don't become sexually mature until they're 20 or 25 years old. So, conserving rockfish and setting up marine sanctuaries and thinking about rocky shore habitat where juvenile rockfish need is really important for rockfish. This is another place, Skookumchuck Narrows. The walls are covered with this. You're floating through. This is a timed dive because the current is very bad here. You got to get through this in about 45 minutes or, next stop Japan. So, I mean, you're just snapping pictures like crazy and floating through this Narrows, but the walls are just covered with this. It's Technicolor overload when you're floating on this. These are another type of jellyfish that you can see. This is red-eyed Medusa. Lots and lots of these little jellies up there. These are just beautiful to see. Showstoppers. This is another type of target dive that you can see up in Hornby. Swimming with these guys is insane, okay? These guys see you, and you're just another weird sea lion, okay? These are stellar sea lions. These are all juveniles. They're like teenagers. And they see you, and you're just another fun little teenager that they're going to come and play with. They all chew on you. Yes, they chew on you. And they think that you're the funnest little chew toy ever. You have holes in your dry suit. You have holes in your gloves. You're very happy that you brought something called Aqua Seal when you go on this dive, because you're going to leak like crazy. You know, you get some great pictures of these guys, because they'll come and they'll stuff their head right into your camera dome because they're very curious about you. They don't hurt you. They're not, you know, they just want to play with you. But unfortunately, there's 200 of them that want to play with you and be your friend. So you kind of have to, you know, learn how to, you know, interact. And they also bite your head too. They don't bite you hard. They're just kind of like biting you like they would bite their friends. But this is an interesting dive. It's very intimidating at first, and you kind of have to get used to it. But if you've ever want to have some adrenaline pounding dive, try diving with 600-pound stellar sea lions. It's exciting. It's exciting. So then leaving British Columbia and then coming into Washington, these are all the places that I've dove in Washington. Okay, not just one dive, but many dives. And so I just thought I'd put a star everywhere. Nia Bay, fantastic diving. Yeah, really nice. Unfortunately, been closed because the Macaw people own most of this, and Cape Flaherty, and they closed the reservation due to COVID. And, you know, good for them because they don't want it. And so nobody can get in or out of Nia Bay, and that's been pretty much reality for the past year and a half. There's another place called CQ, which is awesome diving, but in the wintertime, it can rage up there. You can have like 20, 25-foot seas. This is the Strait of Juan de Fuca. This is very advanced diving, very current sensitive. It can really be rough up there. You can get 7-foot surge, you know, no problem. It can be really foggy. You need to dive up here on a boat with somebody who definitely knows what they're doing. Okay, you do not want to be up here with anybody who does not know what they're doing, because it is definitely next stop Japan. This is very great diving though, excellent diving. This is the Hood Canal. The diving here is very different from the diving that you will do here in the Puget Sound. So you kind of get a lot of different diving depending on where you go in Washington. This is an example of CQ diving. This is a moon snail. CQ I like because it's about 30 foot deep. It's a shore dive. I mean, you'd have to dig a shovel to go deeper than that, but just, you know, you just see so much there. This is an example of Nia Bay diving. This is a kind of kelp that you'll see there. This is just, you know, gives you an example of the current and the surge. Another example of CQ Nia Bay diving. And then you see a lot of this stuff in the San Juan Islands. This is a Puget Sound king crab. You see these guys up in this area. You also see these guys in Canada too, but you see a lot of this up in that northern area up in Washington. These guys can get large, these Puget Sound king crabs. There's a place near Anacortes that we like to dive called Skyline, very current sensitive dive. Another, you got to be in at a certain time and then get out because a lot of water comes pouring in through Burroughs Passage. But you can see things like this called candy striped shrimp. They're very tiny. They're about an inch, less than an inch. They live on snake lock anemones. So you have to kind of really be in there with a macro lens and sort of know what you're looking for. But boy, when you find them, it's the payoff. You can also see these guys, grunt sculpin. They live in old barnacle shells. They're kind of bizarre sculpin that sort of is trying to evolve into a crab. They even move like a crab on the surface. Very interesting. You can see these guys. These are mosshead warbonnets. Again, very tiny macro critter. This is a keystone jetty, which is on Whidbey Island. This is a scalehead sculpin that's resting inside a purple ochre star. You can see a lot of these guys. This is another pelagic jelly called a lion's mane. And yes, I have been stung by these jellies. They will sting you. I have been stung on the face because that's the only place that's exposed. This is a good time that you're glad you have a little spray bottle full of vinegar because, you know, it hurts when you get stung right around here. And you will get stung because what happens is that these guys get into boat propellers and, you know, their tentacles will get chopped up and then they hit you across the face and then, you know, you get a face full of stingy when you get out of the water, but it's worth it to get pictures like this. I also like to go to Hood Canal to shoot these guys, which are brown bombers or brown rockfish. I just love these fish, especially when they're getting ready to spawn. Here's a male kind of putting on the dog. And they just get real rosy in the face and get all puffed up for the ladies. Okay, this is kind of the X-rated part of the show. So, you know, sea cucumbers, they do spawn. And this is a part, you know, this is the time of year when they do spawn. And this is the female, okay, on the left, putting out an egg packet, okay. And there are times of the year and there's a place that I like to go in Hood Canal to get pictures of this happening because, you know, who knew, right? So, and here's the male spawning. So, and obviously, see, if you don't know what that is, you need to watch another Zoom video and probably not this one. But, you know, this is what's happening with the male and the female cucumber. Of course, this is one species of, this is an orange sea cucumber and this is a California sea cucumber. But it's really interesting to catch this type of behavior photographically. And I also thought it was kind of beautiful too, myself, but that's me. This is another place called Sun Rock Flagpole site. This is my friend looking at orange zoanthids, which is just another beautiful type of invertebrate. And here's a giant Pacific octopus, and this is a female, and she's got eggs, and you can see them in there. And just a real quick rundown on octos. You can see them in British Columbia, Washington, and Oregon. I really try to not bother them when they're on eggs. I kind of stumbled on this one. The female, when she lays eggs, she stays with the eggs. They live about 3 years. When she lays eggs, she's in there. She tries to seal herself up in there. She's in there until she dies. And just before she dies, she kind of leaves the nest and she tries to get away from the nest to draw predators to her so that when she dies, they'll feed on her and the eggs can hatch and, you know, she'll detract away from the eggs hatching and give them a chance to hatch and get out into the water column. So, you know, and she'll turn completely white before she dies. So that's kind of, and then I just took one quick picture and just get away because, you know, she's conserving her energy to fan her eggs and take care of her eggs and not put up with unwanted guests. This is a sea star. All sea stars kind of have these type of structures. This is a crusted sea star. These are pedicellariae, these little things right here. This is what keeps stuff off the sea star. They kind of move like this and they push stuff off the sea star. This is what that 105 macro lens, you know, you can really get in there. You get these really cool pictures like this. This is the gills of the sea star. So I just thought that was super cool to look at that up close. Here's a wolf eel. They're not an eel. They're actually a fish. And they're also not ferocious. They're kind of timid. They sort of hide in their little dens. Sometimes they'll come out and swim around. They usually have the male usually has 2 females in there. He's kind of a pimp. He'll have like 2 or 3 females in there with him. They usually have eggs this time of year too. And it's fun to see them in there with their eggs. Sometimes, again, I don't like to bother them when they're on eggs or, you know, take pictures of them because I figure they're busy trying to raise their young, but they're kind of fun to see. Just kind of real quickly about this situation, and then we got to get on to Oregon real quick because I only have a minute. But sea stars, you know, we used to see a lot of them and they're all dying. And that is a bummer. So, you know, we see a lot of them. They look like this now. Not good. So here's Oregon. Here's all the places I've dove in Oregon. This is one of the things you can see in Oregon, chum salmon. lingcod, kelp greenling. This is the female. Here's the male. Here's a cabezon. This is in Port Orford. And here's a red urchin, crab, red rock crab in this case, copper rockfish. This is down in Port Orford, red rocks, beautiful place to dive. This is why it's called Redfish Rocks. Here's a redfish. This is a Vermilion rockfish, one of the most beautiful rockfish you could ever see. There used to be a lot of kelp down there, Chickchurn, Hellgate. Here's what it used to look like. And here's the new friend that's down there now. This is not quite a friend, purple urchin. This is what's coming in down there now. And this is what Nellie's Cove looks like. And I was certified in Nellie's Cove, and Nellie's Cove used to look like this. And now Nellie's Cove looks like this. And that's a big question. And I told Tara I would just kind of throw that out there for you. And not really sure what the future is going to hold with this. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there for you. And I am at 40 minutes, which I said I would stop at. And like I said, I agonized over these pictures. But I am here at this website right here, laurateslerphotography.com. I have an Instagram. I try to post pictures and give everybody some vitamin C every day. I also am on Facebook, and that's me. So if you want to see more pictures, there's where you can go. Thank you.
Those photos are so beautiful. So great. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A or chat, and I will get us started with one. I'm super naive to diving, so this might be a naive question, but do you dive in the night and during the day? And if so, which do you prefer? Do you see more during one or another?
I dive in the night and the day, and there's reasons to dive. You know, if you dive at night, you're going to see different things at night. So it's kind of like there's a night shift of critters, and then there's a day shift of critters. So if you want to see, for example, if you want to see something called a sailfin sculpin, or a long spine combfish, or the little red octopus, or sometimes even seeing giant Pacific octopus, you're going to see more of those creatures at night. Because nighttime, you know, just more creatures come out to hunt or feed at night. Whereas in daytime, you're going to see more of those creatures that are, that's their kind of diurnal cycle to come out and feed. So it just depends. It depends on what you want to see. Some sites will have, you know, you just know, you know, when you dive sites a lot, you kind of know, okay, this is the night shift. This is what I'm going to see there. Or, you know, this is what I'm going to see during the day. So, or sometimes I'll just go to a site that I've never dove at night and just see who shows up. You know, so I guess the question would be, it depends. It depends on what you want to see, right?
Right.
You know, sometimes at night you can do something called blackwater. You know, like a lot of people will go to Indonesia to do blackwater shoots. You don't need to go to Indonesia to do blackwater shoots. You can do them right here in the good Pacific Northwest. And you can do cheap blackwater, which consists of, you know, we just take like a float and we hang a flashlight underneath it, and then we just go and do like a night dive and then come back and see who shows up, you know?
Right. Got it. And then here's a two-part question. How does the water temperature in BC compare to Hood Canal? And can you show the slide again of the dive sites in Oregon?
Okay. Can I show the slide again? I don't know if I could, I don't know if I could do that. I think it's being recorded, and I could possibly, I don't know. I think, can I do that, Tara? I don't know if I can.
You have to share your screen again.
Okay. I probably could do that.
And then if you share your screen, you can just go to that slide.
Okay. Share. Okay. Hopefully this doesn't like break the computer. Okay.
Nope, we're seeing it.
Okay. There you go. There's the slide of the dive sites.
And then how would you, the first part was, how does the temperature compare to in BC to Hood Canal?
Well, that's a good question because that's a seasonal question. In the wintertime, it's going to be colder, obviously. But I'm going to say overall, I think BC is going to be a tad colder because BC has a lot more current and has a lot more interchange than Hood Canal does. And I'm going to say that Hood Canal is going to be on the warmer side.
Okay.
So, but I'm not going to say by 10 degrees. I'm going to say by 5 to 6 degrees, you know, because it can be really warm in the Hood Canal because the Hood Canal, you know, this gets into a detailed discussion about turnover. So,
Got it.
yeah.
And then has your, let's see here, has your Oregon coast diving been mostly boat diving? And are there hidden sites with shore access? And what's your favorite dive site in Oregon?
Oh man, I hate when people ask me about my favorite dive site. I really do because people are like, where do you like to dive the most? And like, you know, I like it all. I like it all, baby. You know, I mean, even the worst dive is a better day than hanging out working. I mean, come on. You know, I'm not trying to throw shade on any place in Oregon, but I really do like diving out of Port Orford. I mean, and mostly because, I mean, I think if there was more, the problem, I have a couple, Tara said that we could run over 10 o'clock, but this is what I'm going to say. The problem with Oregon, it's not really a problem. It's just that in Washington, in BC, people have figured out that there is a business opportunity to have dive charters, that there's boats and there's businesses and there's people, that there's a dive community that are like, hey, I want to dive. You know, I'm going to support these businesses that will take me out in a boat and we'll dive these places. But, you know, if you look at Oregon, the geology of Oregon is that we don't have a lot of sheltered, you know, places. Like if you go to, for example, Depot Bay, and you look at Depot Bay, you're like, oh my God, there's no sheltered places to get out. You know, there's not like a nice place where you can kind of tuck in and dive, like the Puget Sound. It's got this beautiful sort of natural shelter, you know. But I think if there was some dedicated charters that went out of Newport, or there was a dedicated charter, we're trying to work on this in Port Orford, where we have a dedicated charter that, hey, we'll take you out to Port Orford Reef, which is a beautiful place to dive, or even just Redfish Rocks. But it's kind of rough, you know, it's not easy diving. It's not for people that don't have a lot of experience. So, you know, there's that too. But I like to go, you know, like Netarts is a fun little dive. I mean, Netarts is 30 feet, but you can just poke along the jetty and you can see all kinds of fun stuff, you know, and it's a fun little beginning dive. It's not scary as long as you get in on the tide, right? You know, so it just depends. It depends on what your skill level is. But the pinnacles outside Newport, you know, I mean, there's a saying, and this is what we say, when it's good in Oregon, it's good. I mean, it's good, you know, but when it's bad, it's bad.
Best of both worlds.
You know, really, you know, but I've had days where you come up and you're like, a gray whale breaches right by your boat, you know, like you feel like you could touch the whale. You can see the barnacles on the back of the whale. Now that is a good dive day.
Yeah.
But then I've also had days where you're hanging over the side going, oh my God, you know, this has not been the greatest day ever. So yeah. That would be my long-winded answer.
And then this person said they got certified in 1980 and a lot has changed since then. Can you talk about the changes in diving equipment, such as regulators, tacks, masks, etc.?
Yeah, I think this person was probably diving with a horse collar and stuff like that back in the 80s. I commend you if you were diving back then because I mean, those guys had J valves. I think that was when, like, you knew when to come up when you were getting short on air. Like, you'd start getting shallow breath, and that's when you knew when it was time to stop diving. Wow. You had to be brave to dive back in the day. I mean, you think it. So, oh yeah. I mean, technology has changed way for diving. I mean, I now have a computer that it's a hoseless computer. It talks to a transmitter that sits back on the tank. I mean, I still have a backup SPG, of course, but you know, I mean, technology has changed drastically, and for the better, obviously. Although I will note to you, person from the 1980s, you know, the little fish tank masks that were so cool that everybody, you know, like, remember Ursula Andress came out of the water in that James Bond movie, and she's got that really super cool little round mask on. Those round masks are coming back in style. I was in the dive shop the other day and they had them in the dive shop, and I was thinking, wow, that'd be kind of cool.
And then do you see any other stuff underwater? Like we were talking yesterday and you had mentioned not only in addition to these cool animals you're seeing, but you're seeing things like a ton of plastic.
Yeah.
Do you see that in most areas, or are there specific areas where it's concentrated more?
There is not one dive where I do not pick up garbage. Okay. But you have to be careful sometimes about picking up what you think is garbage, because like bottles and stuff, you have to be like, look inside, make sure it's not somebody's home, because unfortunately, like a lot of sea creatures, they'll live inside a bottle. I mean, we picked up a bottle that we thought was empty and we had it in the rig, and we were driving home out of Hood Canal, and we looked back there and a little red octopus came out of this bottle and was sitting on the floor mat inside the car. And I mean, it was just like, I about, like, you know, freaked out, crossed 3 lanes of traffic. And so we turned around and like drove back 20 miles to the boat ramp and was able to let him go. He actually survived. He was out of the water for a half hour and survived.
Wow.
So you have to be careful sometimes about that. But I'm always picking up plastic bags, straws, just crap, you know, and masks now, you know, masks. And so, I mean, I think, yeah, just stuff, you know, caps, you know, whatever, styrofoam. So I really would say that, you know, you don't think this is a lot, but when you go to Starbucks, just say no to the straw, or like keep your straw and put it in your purse or your car or whatever. And, you know, just wash it out and use it. You know, I mean, even small stuff like that can really make a difference. You know, have somebody buy a cloth mask, keep it, wash it, keep it, you know, stuff like that. You know, tell Amazon to stop sending you this ridiculous small item that's boxed inside 15 other boxes. And, you know, and if you dive, keep up the pressure on the dive industry. You do not need to put your fins inside a paper or inside a plastic bag with all this crap inside the fin and all that. That's just no bueno. And so we should just hold our own industry responsible to start out with.
Small changes make a difference.
They do.
And I'm not familiar with this question, but you might be. Is Cape Perpetua and Otter Rock a shore dive or a boat dive? Otter Rock for sure is. I went down there the other day and I was going to snorkel out there, and I tried to snorkel there, and after getting tossed around in the waves and spending some time in the green room, and I decided that that's probably a boat dive. I think, yeah, and I don't even know where. I think you would have to put in at probably Depot Bay, and then have somebody kind of motor you down there. The Marine Reserves people, I would love to dive with them. There's a technicality why I can't dive with them. I will dive with them when I retire, though, which is going to be soon. So, but I think they do put in a Depot Bay, and then they probably motor there. So I would say that that's probably a boat dive. Now, Pisco, that monitors Strawberry Hill,
and all those places on Cape Perpetua, I would suspect that they're boat diving all of that. And they're probably going to put in at probably Florence, I would think would be their closest put in. And then they would do that. I know when the MacArthur was in service and we did the trip on the MacArthur, of course, the MacArthur is a big ship and they cannot get that close. So, I would say when we were pulling the Nekton nets, we were offshore there. So, yeah, I'm going to say all that stuff's probably better off a boat. And again, back to the original discussion, it'd be great if there were charters, but we have to have the demand for it. It's expensive to have a charter. It's expensive to put in the gas. You have to have a 50-ton license or a 100-ton license, liability, all that stuff.
So here's a question here about, are permits required to dive in marine reserves? I don't know. One, do you need a permit to just dive in general? That I don't know. And I don't believe you need to have a permit so long as you're not extracting anything, is my understanding. You can still recreate.
Right. Now, in Canada, you don't need a permit to dive in a marine reserve. Well, I hope you don't need a permit because I have dove in a marine reserve in Oregon. I think as long as you're not taking stuff, you're fine.
Yeah, no take. Yeah. But just to throw it out there, check with ODFW first. If you're uncertain, is what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend too, is I would just check with ODFW and I would just, drop them an email or call them in Newport. They got an office in Newport there, and just give them a little call and just ask. In Canada, you can, it's not a problem. It's a problem if you're taking stuff, but
right.
I'm just taking pictures. I'm not touching anything. So
yeah. And then that looks like the end of our questions, but we have a few comments here that I want to read to you. Amazing photos, really inspired, enjoyed the presentation, and they wish they had a big screen to view them on, most definitely. Thank you. There's one, wow, which is pretty amazing. They love the little octopus. Great program, great pictures. Thank you for sharing. This is from Laura Lee. She misses diving with you. She moved from Pacific Northwest to San Diego and would love to see her California pictures. Here's another one. Great talk. Just letting you know that this person, Paul Engelmeyer, he saw his first lamprey red the other day.
Ooh, okay, Paul.
No adults, and that he hopes to cross paths soon.
Oh yeah, Paul, I'll see you soon.
And then here's a really cool one. Greetings from Edinburgh, Scotland. Good evening. No questions, but they are surprised at how many of the animals you showed over all Pacific Northwest are ones in which they also see there too, such as lions, means, wolffish, and all of that. 1 hour from Edinburgh on their house reef. And that includes the weasel. I can only agree very much with your positive statements about colorful diving and cold water, and they just thank you for the great presentations.
Hey, people from Scotland, I would so love to dive in Scotland because I see people that dive in Scotland and they have basking sharks, and I would love to see a basking shark. We used to have basking sharks here too, and unfortunately they were extirpated because people thought that they ate salmon, which is totally a stupid idea. But we hope somebody saw a basking shark a couple of years ago, I think, in the Puget Sound, and hopefully someday they'll come back. But they still have them in Scotland, so I would love to dive Scotland. So send me an invite.
And then there was a comment here that does mention that most parts of the world you do need a permit for marine parks. So again, always check before you're going. And then somebody else mentions that it's time to go diving.
Yeah, it certainly is. It sure is. I hope to do some diving in 2 weeks.
And with that, Laura, I just want to say thank you so much again for being with us today, for sharing all of your amazing pictures. I highly encourage you to go check out Laura's website where you can see more work from her. She spoke with her yesterday, and she's got some exciting projects coming up. So I'm really looking forward to following you and seeing more pictures that you have and keep hearing about all your amazing experiences. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you.
kicking off the last presentation of our speaker series. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel by Tuesday morning. And so with that, I wish you all a wonderful day and a fantastic weekend.
Thank you again. Bye.